Hello, good afternoon from Pipers'Persuasion. Alan Hamilton speaking to you again, and it's 5th of November, Guy Fawkes Day 2019. And the last fortnight I have completed another 2 interviews. But before I tell you about these interviews, just another quick word. I should introduce this talk to you by mentioning that Pipers'Persuasion and our friends out there are very sad to hear of the loss to everyone of Bob Shepherd. Bob passed there recently, and I'm quite sure that his family are feeling very sad at this particular loss. Bob was a big character in the pipe band world in general, and the Scottish Pipe Band Association in particular. He was extremely knowledgeable and passed on this knowledge with great alacrity to those around about. And being a former teacher, he was wonderful at how he dispensed with this advice, and it was very clear in his direction of travel with both his piping, his pipe band world, and indeed Shepherd's manufacturing bagpipes, very famous. So we're sad there, and we pass on our condolences to his family. I'll put up a link again on Facebook and what have you of the particular interview that we had some time ago with Bob Shepherd, and an excellent interview and well worth watching. Again, if you haven't seen it, then perhaps you could go through our index and just select it and have a wee watch. It's very good. Regarding Pipers'Persuasion, we've had some recent purchases we needed to make. One of the cameras gave up on me after quite a few years, so I've bought a camera, and it's going to be down as my second camera. You're looking at the product, the #1 camera, which is still holding up. I have a second camera, and Pete Haywood, who keeps on coming in the background of various interviews, produces other footage with a third camera, which we feel inclined to use from time to time. Also, I've bought sound equipment there recently to improve the sound, and today I bought a new computer, because the one just behind me, after many years of hard work with Pinnacle editing and all the rest of it, has decided to slow down and go slow in its work. So my computer man tells me it's time for a new computer. So today I spent £1,000 on the computer. So we're spending between £1,000 and £2,000 between computer, camera, sound equipment and all the rest, just to keep the product up to date and produce good vision, and above all good sound for you to watch in the future. We have 2 interviews, number 79, Chris Armstrong, I'll tell you about him in a moment, and I've got another one in the can, Duncan Nicholson, to follow. Both very absorbing interviews, entirely different in their approach to our discussion. So the one that I'm going to talk about at the moment is Chris Armstrong. His pipe major company of the Scottish Power Pipe Band has been for quite a number of years now, and like everything else, is very experienced pipe major now. He's been sitting in that seat for a long while. Towards that end, I tried to target him initially after the early bagpiping thing is control and blowing of the instrument. Now this is a good segment for you to watch. It was segment number 2, and here he discusses his approach to teaching others how to control and blow the instrument properly and produce a good steady sound. So that's well worth watching for all beginners and other experienced chaps out there, because blowing is the big thing, especially in solo competitions and in top pipe band competitions. If you vary it ever so slightly, then you're lost. But for the rest of us, we should all be aspiring to blow the Highland bagpipe properly and produce an excellent sound. And Chris will help you towards that end. The other thing we spoke about was pipe band, Scottish Power setup, how he approaches his band practices and everything else. That's good as well. And the choice of tunes, we had a brief discussion on that, how he picks tunes. And of course that led on to his composing of his own tunes and recording, which was fascinating. And we went from there and discussed his approach to pipe band concerts. And it's all great stuff. So I can only recommend you sit down, get a nice cup of coffee and relax and enjoy Pipers'Persuasion once again. Thank you very much for your attention and the support, and look forward to further support from you in the future episodes of Pipers'Persuasion. Thank you very much. To Earth Castle, and maybe Chris can tell us a wee bit about that later on, you know. Anyway, without any further ado, Chris, where are you from?
Originally, Alan, I'm from Bathgate or Boghall.
Right.
That was where I grew up, with obviously when I was staying at home with my folks and things like that. So,
Were you any part of a set-up with the Boghall Bathgate Pipe Band? Or?
No, it was Terfickin and Bathgate. So that, I think, would have been, I started learning in 86.
What age?
6 years old.
And
in actual fact...
Who taught you?
Right, so I was taught through the band, because what happened was, and I think they'd maybe been going maybe a season or two, and they decided to start up a juvenile system, start teaching. Anyway, about a year later, and I think probably my poor mum's nerves been shredded through me persistently asking to get started learning the pipes, they agreed to take me, and that was how it all kind of kicked off. One-to-ones sessions to begin with. So there was 2 or 3 different people involved in helping teaching the group.
That's always a good setup.
Yeah. So Mark was one of them. At learning the basics, obviously, the technique and all that kind of thing.
Was it quite good tuition in terms of
it was
emphasis and technique?
Yes,
and that sort
absolutely.
Of thing?
I mean, I've always placed a big emphasis personally on technique and things like that, and that stems from that basics, you know, the basics that I was given. And so it was, you know, I remember as a kid sitting around this table, once we were all in a position where we could sort of play, and been taken through all the technique. It was a different teaching style to what even I teach myself now, in so much as I never saw a tune for about 3 or 4 months until I'd covered all the technique, and it was the RSPBA Blow Tutor book that was used, and so my first tune was the full set in a Scotland the Brave from the RSPBA Tutor book, and that was because it was technique, and that was it for the first 3 or 4 months or whatever.
That's quite off-putting for a youngster
It can
too,
be.
isn't it?
It can be. Certainly nowadays. I mean, I couldn't see myself teaching youngsters like that nowadays because it's not the most exciting way to learn, you know. And you're just sitting relentlessly bashing exercises and things like that for months and end until you reach a point where they determine that you're ready. But what I will say, I think, is that it was. I would say that it's probably a good way to teach if you have the right student, you know, who can sort of go the course with that approach. But I would say it's probably been a big part of why my technique's always been pretty good, because there was so much attention to it at the very start. And obviously, I mean, the nature of what we do is we're trying to be, you know, as pipers, everything is really technique orientated, and I'm trying to make sure it's the best. So it was pretty grueling, I suppose, as a kid, but I think the net result of it was that you ended up with about 12 of us all sort of started running at the same time. 12 of us who were all really good technical players.
It's good when you get a group like that because folk hang in there because of the social element, whereas if just an individual try to do that, they maybe just take a walk and
that's right. No, you're absolutely right. It's good learning in a group like that. I mean, because there's a bit of healthy competition as well, you know. So that pushes you to make
peer
sure.
pressure, right?
Exactly. So you go away home and you go daft for it at home because you don't want to be the weak link when you go back there the following week or whatever, you know. I mean, I remember sitting around the table again when we were at the point where we could all play, and we would it would be led by Mark at this point because obviously there wasn't so much of a need for the others to be involved in the teaching part of the process, and we would sit and go through the exercises from the RSPBA tutor book that start really slowly and open and correct as you can get it, and then it would repeat, and on each repetition it would get slightly quicker, right? And so what happened was that eventually developed into a game of the last man standing. You know? And again, so that sort of friendly, competitive aspect of it. And what that did was it made you go home and it made you practice these exercises. So the next time you were hopefully the last man standing.
Still ahead of the game.
That's it. Absolutely. So no, it was good, and I really enjoyed the whole thing back then and learning, and obviously it was all new and exciting and stuff like that. So.
Well, when did you actually get on to the full bagpipe? What age?
I think I'd been playing about 6 months, and it was straight on to the full thing. There was no goose or anything like that. No drones, obviously, to begin with, and a good old hide bag, pre-synthetics, you know. So nobody could really tell me what they were actually. They did the orange mounts, I'll tell you that much. That's about as much as I remember. And standard combing and beading. It wasn't like the flat combing and beading or anything like that. So anyway, that was the first set of pipes that I had at that age, and probably not a bad thing because, you know, with them being full imitation, they'd have been a bit lighter in weight and things like that. And then after I had been playing, I'd got onto the pipes and started to show a bit of progress and things like that. Then my parents bought me a set of Robertsons, which I played for a long enough time.
What age would that be? Were you actually playing in a band
yes.
by that time?
Yes, so this group that we started all together at the same time, that ended up becoming the Trevine and Bathgate Novice Juvenile Pipe Band. And again, the details are really sketchy, but I'm sure we competed for maybe a season or two. Actually, I started to go for solo tuition as well. And that was with an old guy called John Matheson, Pipe Major John Matheson.
What's his background, Chris?
So he was ex-army, Cameronians, Scottish Rifle Regiment. And anyway, he was based in Bathgate. He'd settled in Bathgate. Both the Bog Hall Band, or Bog on Bathgate rather, and Trefechan, if they had any kids that were interested in doing the solo thing, or showing a bit of promise and things like that, you got sent to John. So that was, I think I must have been about 8 or so when that started. And there were some pretty well recognised players, I think, went to John at one point or another.
Aye.
Pretty sure Simon Marshall went to John at one point years ago.
See,